Okay, so the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game team did a lore stream the other day to sort of fill players in on some of the characters in the game and give a little bit more backstory for them. So I thought it'd be fun to sort of go through the highlights for each character. It was like a 2 hour long stream, so I've pretty much just written down everything you need to know that they said about the characters. That's like cool, basically. So in the Petals era, so like pre game, Maria and like the game Petals takes place in March or April around Texas wildflower season. It lasts about a month, so that's sort of when the game takes place. Maria's camera is the camera that the hitchhiker has in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. So it was really cool to like tie it together and have Hitchhiker using her camera in the movie to like be weird with and stuff. And then a bit more backstory on Maria. Her and Anna's father passed a few years before the game takes place, and Maria had really stepped up, and the family like pooled all their money together to send her off to college. And for this wildflower season trip, Anna was sort of left by herself in Uvalde with her mother. So a bit of backstory on how Maria meets the rest of the group. So she met them at the University of Texas. She first ran into Leland, who was wearing a Georgetown Coyotes jacket, which was his high school wrestling team. Maria went up to him and basically said, like, oh, you're not the Coyotes. Like, I'm from Uvalde. We're the Coyotes. And there was a little bit like of a playful confrontation there. And then Leland introduced her to the rest of the group, which includes Danny. I know Danny's a fairly new character, but they did say on the stream he was sort of in the group from the beginning. And then Anna became friends with the rest of the group through Maria knowing them and probably her telling them about her sister and stuff. And then after this whole group got together, Maria and Danny hit it off pretty soon after meeting because they were able to bond and start a relationship over the trauma and struggles they had both been through in life. So moving on to Maria's disappearance, no one in the group or Anna has heard from Maria, and it's very unlikely of her to have not called, so they start getting worried. Anna is actually the one to initiate the search party with the group that is Leland, Connie, Sonny, and Julie. Danny was not in this group, and you'll find out later why. So the group heads to Texas and they run into the cook at the gas station, and he invites them to camp on his property, which is the campsite you see in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for a few frames. And then during that night where they're camping there, the family ambushes them, and that's how the game kicks off. So going into the survivors and sort of their backstories a little bit. First up, they talked about Sonny. They just sort of like restated that he's like a nerd, he's very smart, but they did reveal that he actually has a girlfriend back at the University of Texas. Her name is June. She's very nerdy as well. They talked about concept art for characters, like side characters and stuff, like characters that won't be in the game, but there was concept art created for them. But unfortunately, June was not one of these characters, and they said she won't ever be in the game. They said Sonny was a big fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey and War of the Worlds. One of the bracelets he wears is from June, and they said that maybe in some of his different customization options, some of the clothes he wears is stuff June gave him. And they said that they just adore each other. And he's a really big sweetheart, which is why he decides to join the group on their search party to Texas. And they said that Leland is his boy, and it's like a big brother type relationship between Sonny and Leland. So moving on, we've got Julie, who is the sporty SoCal girl. So though Julie is a very confident character, just sort of appearance wise and just in the backstory that they gave earlier when the game came out, but they said that Julie actually got hurt. She was a freshman dating a senior, and then the senior like dumped her after the prom and completely like ghosted her, and it really affected her. So she was pretty closed off, but then started to realize that she didn't want to be this type of person, so she started to regain her confidence. And this new Julie that we see within the game is a very confident girl. Now, they sort of defined the relationship between her and Leland. So basically, she likes him and he loves her, but Julie is really worried about getting hurt again. So she sort of closed off and sort of wants Leland to earn her love and trust because she doesn't really want to get hurt again, which is like totally understandable. So moving on to Leland, they said that he was the wrestling king in a high school, but sort of as he went to college realized he wasn't actually the king and couldn't make it at the college level of wrestling and really lost himself and is trying to find himself at this new school where wrestling isn't his focus. Because obviously he can't be on the wrestling team because he wasn't good enough in comparison to the University of Texas team versus his high school team. He's not used to being turned down by girls, so the rejection from Julie like really mind boggles him and really has to earn her love. So that's something he's working on as well. They said he often will lament to Sonny for advice, but Sonny has absolutely no experience with girls at all and is like, Leland, like you had it all. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to tell you. Like I don't know what to tell you. So I really liked them sort of building these relationships between the characters so that when you hear voice lines, you sort of know what the pre-established relationship between the characters are. Then moving on, we've got Connie. She's from Paris, Illinois. She's a farm girl. They said she was never rebellious or was like the stereotypical farmer's daughter where she hates her life and wants to get away and move to the big city and get off the farm or whatever. She really enjoyed the work she did and became really ingenuitive from the work ethic she had on the farm. She sort of has a is there more out there relationship with life and didn't necessarily want to leave because she hated it, but she just wanted to see what more there was out in the world. And they said it was nothing against her parents, and she has a wonderful relationship with her parents and loves them so much. But then one other thing that they brought up that was pretty shocking for most people, I thought it was like a really good and cool thing. I don't know. They didn't really give her a label, but Connie is queer, which is really awesome. They said she was in love with a girl in high school, and then the girl from high school, who they never gave a name or any description to, wasn't going away for college. So Connie had to leave her behind to go and find her life out at the University of Texas. So she's got that to like carry with her, that she's like left her family behind, left the girl she loves behind, and really has to find herself in this new town, in this new school and stuff. They compared her to Jodie Foster, sort of beauty, but also with a lot of toughness, and said that within the group, she's closest with Anna and Maria because she really relates to their hardworking past after they lost their dad and had to really work to help support their family and support their mom and stuff. And then moving on to Anna. So the first thing they told us about her is that she's actually a cheerleader for the football team in high school, which is really surprising because I think a lot of people thought that Anna was going to be a more shy, introverted, sort of like quiet character. But I think having her as a cheerleader is like a really cool thing. You don't typically see that in this sort of like horror sphere. Usually the cheerleader is the one that like dies first. It's like stereotypical blonde pigtails. So it's really cool to see Anna in this role. So she had a high school boyfriend. He was like the star football player. He was a little older than her, so he went away for college and had to leave her behind. He did want her to come with him, but she was like, where am I going to live? Like, I can't live in your dorm with you. Like, I don't have the money to live there. Like, I have to stay here with my mom. Because at that point, Anna was gone, so her mother would be all by herself. So the whole family had pooled the money to send Maria away to college and stuff. But Anna was really stuck at home with no prospects and working and stuff. And her whole life was cheerleading and working with her boyfriend on like his success on the football team. They actually said they went to the football field at the high school that Anna and Maria went to, and they had won the state championships in Uvalde in 1972, which would line up really cool with the game. So that's the championship and the year that Anna's boyfriend graduated. And yeah, it's just cool to tie in these real world elements to the game. But anyways, Anna just stuck at home with her mom. So when she hears that Maria's missing, like she has no choice but to go and look for her sister and try to save her. And it's really cool to learn so much about these characters. Moving on to Danny, who is the newest victim that's in the game. So he grew up in a foster home. His dad was a drunk and his mom had left, so he was taken and put into foster care. He did well in school and the programs that they offered and ended up going to college, but he had no parents and sort of wasn't equipped to handle things that life was throwing at him. But he got really sort of tough, became good with cars and electronics and just stuff like that, the stuff that ties into his ability in the game. He met Leland out of the group first and then joined into the group and fell really fast and hard for Maria. They were able to bond over their mutual tragedies, and it gave them a lot to talk about. A lot of people were asking, like, if Danny and Maria were together, like, why didn't he go on the trip to go see the wildflowers that takes place in Petals? And they touched on that briefly in the stream. They said that Maria just wanted to take a solo trip, and like Danny was fine with that. They said like you never expect your loved one to go away for a very mundane trip to go take pictures of flowers and then have them never come home. So another question people had was, if Danny's a part of this group, like why is he not on this road trip with the rest of the group and Anna and stuff? And they had said that Danny, as soon as he heard that Maria was missing, took off on his own to go find her. So he's there in Newt, Texas, even before the rest of the group is there to go look for her, because he just can't wait to find her, and he can't get anything from the police. He knows that they found her car, so they think maybe he knows that the police found her car, so he thinks maybe it might have been taken to like a scrapyard or a salvage yard or a junkyard for cars. So he goes looking for those. He doesn't stop at the gas station. He just goes straight to looking for salvage yards for cars and ends up stumbling upon Nancy's house. And then, as we see in Danny's introduction trailer, knocks on the door to talk to Nancy and gets invited in, and that's how Danny ends up in this. So yeah, that's everything they told us about the survivors. So let's move on to the family. So they didn't really talk a lot about Leatherface, Hitchhiker, and the cook, because obviously they're pretty established in the movies. They did mention a couple things about the cook, but mainly focused on Sissy, Johnny, and Nancy as their new original characters for the game. So the few things they said about the cook was that he's the most sympathetic out of the family and doesn't really want the trouble of killing these kids and stuff. And he's really tired of dealing with idiots his whole life. The Slaughter family really isn't the smartest bunch, so obviously as the secondary patriarch, I would assume the cook's title is just really tired of dealing with the stupid family members, and he's fed up with them, and he can never catch a break. Then they moved on to talking about Sissy, and this part was so interesting because Sissy is my favorite of the family members, so it was really cool to hear all this backstory on her because they gave a lot. So she was originally created in Henkel's character Bible for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is basically a book with characters created and just little paragraphs about them, like very basic. And she was in there. Her name was Sissy Sunshine Slaughter. And it was a very brief paragraph just saying she was part of the family, and then she hitchhiked around to California, free spirit during the Woodstock era, ended up with the Manson family, and then worked her way back to Texas while taking care of some bodies along the way. Yeah, she sort of drifted around between Texas and California doing sort of hitchhikery things, getting drives and stuff, but you know, the second the conversation took a turn or someone tried to hit on her, she would just kill them. They said she's very beautiful and knows how to use people to get what she wants. There is a radio message in the game where they talk about the terror of I-40, and that radio message is about her. They couldn't catch her, but people were aware of her. Obviously, they don't have the technology that they have now to like catch people that are like killing other people. So she was just sort of like an urban legend, I guess, but like real. I don't know how to put it, but yeah, she did join the Manson family, but left before the murders happened because she didn't want to conform and be controlled by their cult, which explains why she knows the songs that she sings in the game. So eventually she ran out of places to go and decided to come home to the family house. Her outfits in the game are taken from people she killed. They said that she home invaded someone and then raided her closet and found the wedding dress and took it. And then they had shared some of Sissy's original designs, and she was going to have like a mechanical prosthetic leg, but eventually they scrapped that because it was too close to Vilmer from Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation. And then they said it was also just hard to get around on it, and people would be more suspicious about picking her up when she's hitchhiking if she has this crazy mechanical prosthetic leg. And she originally was going to have shoes on or like combat boots, or there was one look where she had like one white shoe on and a combat boot on the other foot. But they scrapped that because that's, you know, if you see someone with two odd shoes hitchhiking, that's maybe not the most savory character to want in your vehicle. They have her barefoot, not because of like a weird foot fetish thing, but because people would see that and be like, oh, she has no shoes on, like I'm gonna help her and stuff and pick her up. A few more original designs had her blonde with pigtails and like a blue baby doll dress, like very, very 60s-ish, I would say. There was also a brunette variant of her with a few new dresses. There was one where she had a pixie cut and a prosthetic leg, and they said that the pixie cut's backstory was going to be sort of as people start to recognize her, she would just use her razor and cut her hair off so she could sort of change her look on the fly. And they talked a lot about the flowers on her dress and how that's the dress they wanted in the game, because flowers tie in to so many aspects of the game. There's flowers all around the maps. There's like petals, obviously. Maria's wildflower trip. Like, flowers are such an important leitmotif in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, which is like so interesting because flowers are very beautiful and delicate and pretty, and it's the fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love it. Then moving on, we've got Johnny. So he's got the serial killer charm, sort of facade thing, to be able to go out in town and be lethal, but also still be able to exist and get things with his looks, because he doesn't really. He looks crazy, but he doesn't look suspicious, if that's the way to put it. Originally, they wanted to have him be a very quiet, like cold and calculated killer, but then they realized that going for a more like Billy Loomis equivalent, and like drawing inspiration from him in the Scream franchise, would be a better way to go. And I think it worked, because look at all the people thirsting for Johnny on TikTok and stuff. So they originally had modeled him after Matt Dillon in The Outsiders, and they were gonna have a whole backstory where he fell in love with Maria really fast and like got a huge broken heart tattooed on his arm with Maria's name on it. And he was gonna have much darker hair. They also shared he was going to be shirtless upon launch, but then sort of scrapped that because they couldn't get his muscles right. So they put a shirt on him because they really wanted to figure out how to make the muscles look good. And then a bit more on his backstory. So he was taken by Nancy as a toddler. His mother, Judith, was lost on her journey to escape her abusive husband and Johnny's father, and ends up coming across Nancy's house. And like, it's a very well kept house and like nice garden. And then the junkyard in the back, like, she sort of thought it was maybe like a reputable or safe place to ask for directions. So she goes up to the door and asks and gets invited in. And then they sort of intertwined Johnny and Nancy's lore a bit, so sorry if it gets confusing here. But Nancy wanted Johnny, who was a toddler at the time, because none of her husbands could give her a baby, and so she would kill them. But it turns out that she was actually the problem and couldn't have a baby, but they didn't sort of have that technology for her to be able to know that, so she just thought it was all her previous husband's fault that she couldn't have a baby. So when this woman comes up to her door asking for directions, she, kills her and takes the baby. So Nancy's blind in one eye. She sort of has like a weird eye, and that's because Johnny's mom, Judith, hit Nancy in the eye and blinded her before she dies. Going back to Johnny, so he sort of hung around with the family as he was growing up and would hang out with Hitchhiker, and the Hitchhiker would tease him about like, oh, like, Nancy's not your real mom, like, she killed your mom, like, your mom's dead, blah 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 blah. So he finds out about that and goes to confront Nancy and was going to kill her, but couldn't because Nancy's a bad bitch, I guess. And the scar on Johnny's face is actually from that encounter with Nancy. They said that Johnny is a cannibal as well, but less so for eating the people and more so for the hunt of chasing people down. And it's also an opportunity to get away from Nancy. They also said Johnny has a lot of scars just from fighting people. They said he'd just go around and fight people, and then different scratches and scars from just killing other people and like victim self-defense and stuff. So a little bit more on Nancy. They established that she is not romantically involved with the cook. A lot of people were speculating that. They're just family. They really wanted no familial origins to be established within the family, just to give it some mystery. And they said like just part of the family, which I think is really cool. And they wanted to stay true to Kim Henkel's sort of mission statement around the family, which was that. And one more thing, they said that Nancy has a really rocky, volatile relationship maternally with Johnny because he'll never forgive her. They compared it to like a kid that gets asked to do something and then is like, fuck you, I'm not gonna fucking do that, I fucking hate you, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, sweetie, don't talk like that. Like, oh, I just do it because I love you. Like a very like oblivious relationship where Johnny hates her, but Nancy is just pretending he doesn't. And it's a very dysfunctional dynamic. A few more little notes they gave at the end from questions in the chat. So they said that the family's abilities stem from their appearances and like visual stuff, but the victim abilities tie into their personalities. They sort of established that no one has ever escaped from the family house canonically except for Sally, which is why they move into the tunnels for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So no one's escaped the family house, but they have said that Johnny and Sissy, on their own endeavors, have had survivors that are out there in the world that have stories about them and scars from them. But obviously it's 1973, so they don't really have the technology to capture them yet. And then one final thing they shared about Danny is that he didn't really have any sort of relationship with Anna. He just sort of knew her through the group, because pretty much as soon after they're introduced, Maria goes missing. So they don't have that time to establish any sort of relationship or friendship, because obviously things happen so fast, and he boots it to Newt, Texas right away, and she's got to travel from Uvalde to meet the rest of the group. But they said, had Danny stayed with the group and traveled with them, he would have tried to take care of Anna and, say they had survived or something and Maria was found dead. He would have moved to Uvalde and sort of lived nearby and helped comfort Anna and her mother after Maria's passing. So I think that's really sweet. Okay, so in the time since editing this video, they have announced a new victim, and then literally just yesterday they put up a community hub post sort of detailing her backstory and stuff. So the character's name is Virginia, and she is voiced by horror icon Barbara Crampton. You would know her from Bride of the Reanimator and Chopping Mall. So they said that Virginia is a grief-stricken mother who cannot get over the disappearance of her son Jesse. Obviously, when a mother's kid goes missing, she's gonna get really obsessed with it and ends up moving to Newt, Texas, because that was the last place Jesse was seen. She goes out to remote areas, traveling alone in hopes of finding him. And then on the road to the family house, she notices some unusual behavior, which, as we know, would probably be Maria disappearing or the group getting apprehended by the family in the night and being taken up to the family house. But anyways, she heads to the house to go look for her kid, and then she's captured and trapped in a different kind of nightmare, which is the gameplay of the game. They said her ability is a vast knowledge of homemade remedies, so she's going to sort of be our victim counterpart to Sissy's abilities, where Sissy can make the poison. It seems like Virginia can sort of make like health potions, I guess, with the stuff on Sissy's table, and they have confirmed, like the developers and stuff, that the items that Virginia uses does not impact the items that Sissy can use. They're not pulling from the same materials, so Virginia will never drain Sissy's supply of poison on a table and vice versa. So anyways, Virginia's time as a nurse will also allow her to see Sissy's flower powder and then, as I said, make special concoctions that can save lives. There's another mixture she can make that she can throw directly at a family member to make a blue cloud that temporarily blinds them. I think this power is going to be very much hated by people who main the family. It's going to be similar to that like little black squid in Mario Kart that covers up your screen. She also has a special ability called Boon that she can contaminate blood buckets with. So when family members gather blood from the buckets, they'll become disoriented after doing that. So Virginia seems like she's going to be a pretty powerful character. Also at the bottom of this post, they've shared a photo of Virginia in the new map, which is the mill. They haven't really said much about it. It is coming within the next few updates of the game, I think. So it's cool to see what it's going to look like. Looks like there might be multiple floors to it or whatever. So can't wait to see more on that. Anyways, back to the other video. It's a really interesting stream, and you should definitely go listen to it. It's on Gun Interactive's Twitch in their video section, so definitely go check that out. I just wanted to summarize sort of the key points from it for everyone. So yeah, if you liked this video, let me know down in the comments what your favorite little piece of lore was. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.